Welcome to a linguistic snapshot of Malaysian English. The interaction between English and the two most other widely used groups of languages in Malaysia, Malay and Chinese, has brought about wide-ranging changes to the linguistic system of Malaysian English. Manifested primarily as distinctive lexical features and characteristic phonological, syntactic, morphological, semantic patterns, these changes are nevertheless unevenly distributed across the various domains of language use. In formal Malaysian English, some of the most conspicuous outcomes of this contact are lexical features that reflect the local social-cultural context, including words and phrases that originate in the ancestral languages of the community, as well as those that are locally innovated. Foon and McLagan found the following features in Malaysian English that differ from Standard English. First, we have consonants under phonology. A disclaimer: I don't come from a linguistic background and I have no idea how to pronounce the phonetic symbols faithfully. I can't claim to bear the gold standard of Malaysian English too. I'll just be pronouncing the words for the following phonetic symbols as I usually do. Number 1. The glottalization of final stops in bed, book, dog. Number 2. The devoicing of intervocalic and final voice consonants in web, eyes, bridge. Number 3. The reduction of final consonant clusters in elephant, present, lift. Number 4. The flapping of intervocalic t in butterfly, caterpillar, computer. Number 5. The substitution of labiodental fricative v for bilabial glide v, vase, vest, oven. Number 6. The avoidance of dental fricatives in brother, thief, nothing. Number 7. The omission of duck, ball, milk, hospital. Number 8. The affrication of ch, j, and str in tree, drum, strawberry. Number 9. The omission of morphological markers in final clusters in jumped, kicked, laughed. The Malaysian English vowel inventory is similar to that of British English, with 13 monophthongs and 7 diphthongs. Malaysian English's realization of those vowels, though, different from British English. Number 1. The simplification of diphthongs in hair, alligator, pillow. Court is pronounced as court. Come and cup maintain a distinction, although my pronunciation is much closer. Number 3. The realization of full vowels in unstressed syllables, octopus, ambulance, potato. The table shows the vowel inventory of Malaysian English. Despite etymological identity with the donor language, established loanwords assume the morphological, syntactic, and often phonological identity of the recipient language. They tend to be recurrent in the speech of the individual and widespread across the community. As such, lexical borrowing can be distinguished from mere code switching. In total, 264 lexical features of Malay origin in Malaysian English, not found in Standard English, were identified from the Malaysian English newspaper, MEN Corpus and Examine. The table provides an overview of the distribution of these features across different semantic fields. The number may not tally as certain words have been redacted. Take your time. As far as syntax is concerned, the adherence of Malaysian English to Standard English still prevails to a certain degree. Even so, there are still some subtle differences. The word order of noun phrases in Bahasa Malaysia is used often. For instance, not enough tall for not tall enough. Variable marking of past tense in speech, a feature described by Platt, is found as well. For example, I started working here last year. Another feature common in Malaysian English is pronoun copying, like my mother, she works very hard. It is difficult to ascertain from general observation whether the deviant structures are merely speaker's errors or are fossilized as a feature of Malaysian English. There is a high possibility of these structures becoming a permanent feature of Malaysian English, as they are still intelligible. Although the use of suffixes under grammatical variation differs the least when compared to phonological and lexical variation in different varieties of English, the integration of morphological elements from Standard English into everyday use by Malaysian journalists can be seen as part of an effort towards achieving grammatical nativization, a process indicating that Malaysian English is currently on its way to creating and strengthening its identity. As such, morphological differences between Malaysian English and Standard English are not known to many. Bhaskaran describes the morphological processes of word formation in Malaysian English. They are compounding in polis pondok, suffixation in datuk ship, pluralization in pengaras, past tense inflection in jagat, gerund formation in jagaing, and conversion in ulu makan. However, it is found that Malay morphemes, mainly the verbal kan and the emphatic lah, can be attached to lexical items in Malaysian English, but not in Standard English. The morpheme kan turns adjectives into verbs and verbs into imperatives in KL Malay. For example, after that must ensurekan all people go in. The first function is the same as the English morpheme and it ensure, which makes the form ensurekan redundant morphologically. The morpheme lah is often at the end of utterances when the speaker expects the listener to empathize. After that, continue lah. In the example above, the attachment of lah to important English words, which happen to be at the end of the utterance, show that the morpheme usage transcends codes. An important facet of lexical borrowing in Malaysian English is the semantic adaptation of loanwords, particularly Malay loanwords. Malay words do not always retain their original meanings in the process of being imported into Malaysian English. Often, only a single sense is transferred, and sometimes the meaning in Malaysian English conveys a cultural specificity that is absent in the original range of meanings. The following table illustrates this by providing a comparison of the meanings of several words in Malay and in Malaysian English, as represented by the MEN corpus. In the borrowing of the words kacang, roti, and ulu, semantic restriction occurs. For example, the Malay word kacang has several senses: peas, beans, lentils, and nuts. But in Malaysian English, the word most often refers to roasted peanuts, usually eaten as a snack. In the borrowing of these words, only one specific sense seems to have been transferred, usually a sense that cannot be concisely expressed using existing English words. The table shows a semantic adaptation of Malay loanwords in Malaysian English. The widespread use of English in the multi-ethnic, multilingual context of Malaysia has promoted systematic changes in the linguistic system of the language. These changes have been diversely theorized, but several milestone studies have shaped the way we look at variation and change in Malaysian English. One of the most discerning descriptions of the variety of English, or more precisely, the English of Singapore and Malaysia, was produced by Tang, whose comprehensive body of phonological, syntactic, lexical, and stylistic features of ESM has been an important source of information for later scholars in the field. Tang treated it as a deviant form of British English. Tang's interpretation of the internal variation of ESM, an aspect of the variety that led him to dichotomize it into two dialects, a former educated sub-variety that he perceived to be universally and immediately comprehensible to any native speakers of English, and therefore a significant addition to the rich catalogue of English dialects, because of its similarity to standard British English, and a colloquial sub-variety which he regarded as substandard and clearly unacceptable. In respect of the second sub-variety, he stressed the need for the substandard features to be corrected if the speaker wishes to speak English which is intelligible and respected on an international scale. As such, we should avoid the use of Malaysian English for the sake of international intelligibility. While the rhetoric of gatekeeping echelons of senior management display a preoccupation with establishing and maintaining standard good, proper, correct, and even quality English, the use of Malaysian English is, as Cope and Kalantzis argue, using productive diversity as a metaphor for culture in model for work and management. Corporate culture can thrive on linguistic diversity too. Bargiela, Ciappini, and Harris also show how different languages work in businesses worldwide. In Malaysian business context, this linguistic diversity consists of the repertoires of sub-varieties of Malaysian English, Standard English, Colloquial Malay, Standard Malay, Workplace Register. Workplace communication in Malaysia clearly demands a pluralistic linguistic agenda given the language ecology of Malaysia business context, but it continues to be assailed by the rhetoric of Standard English as a language of even local business interactions. Instead of harnessing the potential capacity of the linguistic diversity of the workforce, the backbone of that potential has been broken by the belief that achieving a competitive edge in a globalized economy depends considerably on the value-addedness of English. But even as English becomes the undisputed lingua franca of the world, its value-addedness may not be sustainable. Even without a competitive edge in English, the Japanese and the Koreans have managed to maintain their economic competitiveness, while the Vietnamese, Cambodians, and Laotians have very successfully attracted large foreign investment funds for development. Even China, an economic giant, is not yet a nation of English users. As such, we need not avoid the use of Malaysian English, particularly so in business contexts. The pluricentricity of English means that the native-like fluency is no longer the sole avenue for claiming intelligibility. In their recent exploration of the issue of intelligibility in an increasingly diverse English-speaking world, Kakru and Smith demonstrated how, beyond intelligibility, using English cross-culturally involves comprehensibility and interpretability. They propose that while grammatical competence and fluency may lead to higher levels of intelligibility and comprehensibility, they do not necessarily result in a higher level of interpretability. If the minimal level of English language competence is incorporated into communication training programs, such as those organized by the Ministry of Human Resources and related agencies, more realistic expectations and targets regarding Malaysian English language usage and competence in the Malaysian workplace can be met. Training programs in Malaysian English will help to bridge the gap between standardized English and local literacy practices and linguistic behavior. Conversely, blind faith in the relevance of a global linguistic norm for local workplace practices is repressive and non-productive. In conclusion, we need not avoid the use of Malaysian English, as the growth of Malaysian English does not erode international communication in the English language, nor does the emphasis on Standard English necessarily improve communication in business settings by a large degree, as it is often claimed. Beyond today's discussion, some future perspectives include: number 1, socio-economic status variation; number 2, phylogenetic parallels with other languages or their varieties; number 3, the prediction of changes in language variety features; number 4, the benchmarking of people or organizations of prominence;